Hello, this is Pam. Today I'm going to be talking about SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if we have not met yet, my name is Pam Bartha, and I am the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. SIBO is a very common condition that we're dealing with, especially if we suffer with chronic disease. And the reason I can talk about chronic disease is that I was diagnosed with MS over 30 years ago. And because I learned very early on about infection, I was able to treat the infections that were causing my symptoms and be able to live MS-free for the past 30 years. And I've had the amazing privilege to coach over 600 students in the Live Disease Free Academy, helping them to recover from all kinds of conditions, including SIBO. And I've got some really exciting insights that I want to share with you that are really, really cutting edge. Most of the integrative practitioners are not aware of this yet, and it's time that this word gets out. So I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. I think everyone can hear me. There, I'll just turn the volume up a little bit more. So what is SIBO? So SIBO is small intestinal, it's spelled S-I-B-O, and it is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So it's very common, it's very uncomfortable. I'll talk about the symptoms in a few minutes, but for people that are suffering with different types of chronic conditions, health conditions, SIBO is very, very common. It is not caused by going vegetarian or going vegan, but a lot of people that eat vegan diets, they may experience SIBO because their eating plan is very high in carbohydrates. So it doesn't cause SIBO, but it can be more common in people that are eating more carbohydrates because it's caused by bacteria. Bacteria love carbohydrates, and if you're out of balance and you have SIBO, then when you're eating a lot of carbs, it will feed the problem. But I'm going to first be talking about basically what generally is understood about SIBO, and then I'm going to add in the little piece that I think is really going to make you think if you are suffering with SIBO and really help you to not just manage it, but the key is to recover from it permanently, which is really important. So for some reason, we have this overgrowth of bacteria in our small intestines. And when we have that, number one, it can be caused by various things. And again, this is like, is it caused by this, or is it just like what's getting down to the very, very root cause? But we do know that if we have less stomach acid or lower than normal amounts of stomach acid, then when we're eating food, and we're taking in bacteria and different microbes, the acid isn't going to kill the microbes that come in. And so we can end up with having microbes that are not health promoting microbes moving in and establishing themselves in the small intestine. So I don't know if where your anatomy and physiology is, but we have our stomach and the whole digestive tract. When we're talking about the intestines, there is first the small intestines, and then the small intestines will link up with the large intestines through a little valve called the ileocecal valve, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So for some reason, we have this overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestines, and we're finding that a lot of the bacteria that are living in the large intestines are somehow making their way up there, and which is not good. We don't want them there. There is going to be certain bacteria that's helping us to digest our food and to make vitamins for us that's in the small intestine, but we don't want the colonic or microbes, bacteria that live in the large intestine moving up into the small intestine. So in order to successfully recover, we really have to understand what is causing this overgrowth. So again, the lower amounts of stomach acid, if our stomach is not acidic enough, it has many repercussions. So number one, it's if we take in any bacteria and small parasites, etc., on our food, if we don't have enough stomach acid, it's definitely not going to kill that bacteria, and then it can start to grow in us. Also, when we have lower amounts of stomach acid, that can impair our digestion. And so we may have less enzymes produced. We may not be digesting our food. So then food that is not digested well enough is going to be present in the small intestine. And again, especially when we have carbohydrates, that will really feed some of those bacteria. They love it. So the stomach acid is really important for digestion. When we have the overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestines, then we can get a lot of gas and bloating and digestive issues, and it can put pressure, and we can end up having the stomach acid being pushed up against our esophagus, and we can have acid reflux. We can end up with GERD. So all of those symptoms are usually due to low stomach acid and also SIBO, the bacteria growing. And so when we go to a lot of practitioners, they'll generally give us like an acid blocking medication or tell us to take an antacid if we're having acid reflux, when in fact, we should be dealing with the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and we should be actually helping to promote the stomach acid. So again, stomach acid plays a really big part in this. And if it's not high enough, then we end up having bacteria growing more than normal in the small intestines. Stress. If we're under a lot of stress, and again, I don't believe that the stress is causing all of this, but I think that high stress can make matters worse. So when we're under a lot of stress, like unrelenting stress that goes on, that can really impact our immune function, and our immune system really helps us to deal with infections. So we can have microbes getting more out of balance if our soldiers and our defense system is not up to par. And also with the immune system and with the stress can also impact our stomach acid and cause it to be lower than normal. Even aging, like as we get older, our stomach acid can be a little bit less too. So stress can impact the stomach acid, and I already talked about how the stomach acid can impact the types of microbes that are living in the small intestines. So those are just a few of the most common thought reasons why they feel that we could have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Also, the use of antibiotics. When we take antibiotics, we can really change the types of microbes that are living inside of us. And so a really big part of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and what helps to make it worse, is when like with our intestines, they're muscles and they contract and they move the digested food and eventually the stool down through the intestinal tract and out. And what we're seeing with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is that the mobility or motility of the intestines is really slowed down. Usually a lot of constipation. And so then our intestines are not clearing out the bacteria like they should. So to me, those are all what would happen with SIBO for sure, but is that the underlying root cause of SIBO? I know that antibiotics definitely can really impact the microbes that live in us. They can completely change the types of microbes that are living in us, but I really believe that there's a lot more to it. And the reason I believe that is because in coaching over 600 students in their recovery from chronic disease, I honestly you can't even comprehend the level of parasitic infestation in people that I have seen. It's shocking. The sicker we are, the more infested we are with parasites. And now that I understand the big significant role that parasites play in not just multiple sclerosis, but all kinds of chronic disease, then you start thinking, okay, well, how can these parasites be contributing, or can they be contributing to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Why can't people clear this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? So if you have it, then normally doctors will put you on antibiotics for a couple of weeks, or some of the integrative practitioners will prescribe different types of antimicrobial herbs. So herbs that will kill bacteria, and they're very effective also. So people are usually quite successful at knocking it back. So they first go to their doctor because they have a lot of gas and bloating. They feel really full. They can be dealing with constipation, just a lot of digestive issues. And they can be dealing with, like I said, acid reflux and GERD, etc. But the problem is that if we just treat the bacterial overgrowth and we don't treat what is causing the bacterial overgrowth, which I believe for probably a lot of people it's an infestation of parasites, then we can get the SIBO back. often. Well, not often, but whenever we're run down, or if we're eating too many of the wrong foods, or maybe we're not sleeping enough, we can get a resurgence of the SIBO. And that's very common. So SIBO is quite common, and the treating successfully, but then having it come back again is very common also. So how can parasites really perpetuate and be kind of possibly one of the biggest root causes of SIBO? Well, number one, I'll go to that. I just wanted to share a few symptoms. I think I did the symptoms. I want to talk about first, before I go into that, I just want to talk a little bit more about how they're diagnosing it and what kind of treatments we're doing. We talked about the treatments, but really they're looking at, when they're diagnosing SIBO, they're talking about the symptoms, the medical history. Also, they do a breath test. Some of you may have done that already. So it's methane or hydrogen gas is released when you have a lot of bacteria growing in the small intestines. And other things, they can look at anemia. So we can end up with anemia. They check electrolytes. Sometimes they'll do a biopsy. Sometimes we'll have nutritional or vitamin deficiencies because we're not absorbing the nutrition from our foods because of the bad bacteria growing there, really impairing our digestion and assimilation of nutrients. And with respect to the treatment I mentioned is looking at antibiotics, or I love the herbs for that. They are quite effective for knocking back bacteria. There are a lot of conditions that are linked with SIBO, and that's really, it's awful, but it's exciting for me to see that because it all really starts to make sense. So people that have a lot of irritable bowel or celiac or Crohn's disease, and also things like diabetes, scleroderma, and different types of neuropathy, vitamin deficiencies, etc. So all of these different conditions are linked with, and others are linked with SIBO. So with doctors, hero doctors that I study under, some of them have worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, helping them to recover from IBS, and irritable bowel syndrome, by treating parasites, and yes, fungus and bacteria. So we have to understand that with respect to parasites, when they're living in our intestines, then they have their own microbes in their digestive tract, in their body. And as they're depositing their waste in us, they are infecting us with the bacteria and the small parasites that live inside of them, and probably fungus also. So number one, they are infecting us with these microbes. And we know that they don't necessarily just continue to live in the small intestines. They definitely will move out into the bloodstream. They can move up into the small intestine. Remember that ileocecal valve between the large and the small intestine? There's research showing that and they like to kind of sit in that area. It's basically the bottom right-hand corner of your abdomen. So look down on your right, down in that corner, that's where the small and large intestines meet. And there's a little valve that's supposed to stay closed to keep the bacteria that are specific for the colon in this large intestine, and to keep them not going into the small intestine. But worms like to live in that area down by that ileocecal valve in the large intestines. And I'm sure when I see the worms that our students are passing, that they can easily be manipulating that valve and opening it. And there's a lot of people that have issues with that valve. And it's like, why? Why are they having inflammation there? Why are they having pain there? Well, do you think a big worm, like a 1 foot to a 2 foot worm, could possibly wiggle through there? Absolutely. And then as they move into our small intestines, right, we know, like through research that I've looked at, that when you have certain infections, it causes a perpetuation of this H1 pathway. I'm not going to get into too much chemistry or physiology here, but we can be in this pro-inflammatory state, and we can have a downregulation of the H2 pathway, and that is really producing our stomach acid, and that's really immune modulation. So that's another way that parasites can cause like perpetual inflammation and low stomach acid. And then remember, the low stomach acid is going to encourage more bacteria to grow in our small intestines, because it's not wiping out whatever's coming in through our stomach, because it's not low enough acidity. So with respect to parasites, number one is that They are going to live inside of us. They're going to infect us with the microbes that live in them, and which includes bacteria. So if we have parasites, worms, living in our small intestines, do you think over a few years, especially if we have more and more reproducing and growing, that they could cause this buildup of bacteria that is normally present in the large intestine? Absolutely. So again, the ileocecal valve is supposed to stay closed, and for some reason it is allowing the bacteria to move from the large intestine to the small. We know that parasites produce so many different chemicals that can affect our cognitive function, chemicals that can affect like our mood and memory and can cause severe anxiety. So people that I work with that suffer with chronic disease, they very, very often they suffer with terrible anxiety. They cannot tolerate stress well. They can be in this terrible, terrible worry state. And when we're in that state, we're releasing all of these stress hormones. And again, this does impact our immune function. This does impact our stomach acids. So that's another way that the parasites can impact our levels of stress, and also our, not just our biochemistry in our body, but the physiology, how our body is working. So number one, they can also, I'll start with this one. This will be number 3, I guess. Parasites can also decrease our motility. Certain parasites are known to cause constipation. That's just so, you can just Google it and you can see that very often they cause, more often than not, cause constipation. So that would definitely decrease the motility. So think about it. If you've got parasites in your small intestines, and they are constantly infecting us with bacteria that they normally would be dropping off in the large intestines, and then they're also causing the small intestines not to move the digested food and the waste down into the large intestine to slow it down. The bacteria is not moving through and it's building up, and that also increases the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And we do know, again, that parasites do cause IBS, and they are hugely, hugely involved in any type of inflammatory bowel, fungus, bacteria, but also parasites. And parasites have just not been recognized really well. A lot of different integrative practitioners, they will do tests, but they will pick up more of these small protozoa type parasites. And yes, they may use things like wormwood and black walnut and cloves, but I tell you that our students have used even like formulas where you can make your own, you can buy the bulk herbs and make them really effective with all of these herbs. They have passed parasites, but those herbs just have not been enough to pass what our students are passing now. It's literally shocking. And what I think is like, how can somebody live with that many worms inside of them? I would like to do another update. If you don't know any of my work, make sure to look back at my past videos, because I do have videos. I think there's a 5 or 6 part series on MS and infections, and that'll help you to kind of see some of the pictures of the worms that our students are passing. But again, fungus is a big part of it, bacterial infections, and parasites. But I really believe that the reason, like if you've been trying to treat SIBO, you've maybe had it before and you've been on antibiotics, or you've used the antimicrobial herbs and you kind of knocked it back a bit and you were symptom free for a while, but you have it come back again, or maybe it kind of comes back every once in a while and you're just trying to control it. Honestly, look into the parasites, because I know that that is really a really big factor, and probably one of the biggest factors of why people cannot clear it. Because if you don't get rid of those parasites, they will keep reinfecting us. They will keep the conditions favorable for the bacteria to grow, the wrong bacteria to grow in the small intestines. And I think that's all that I wanted to share. So those are 5 different ways that parasites can cause and perpetuate small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it's very uncomfortable. It's something that you definitely want to deal with. And again, if you're dealing with not low stomach, if you're dealing with GERD, let's say you're having a hard time swallowing, because that's another problem with chronic disease. And if you're having a hard time with acid reflux, remember that you want to treat the cause. And by decreasing your stomach acid, that's just going to make matters worse. By taking antacids, that's going to make matters worse. What we do in the academy is teach people how to eat so that you're eating in a way that is not feeding the bad bacteria, but you're feeding your body. And then also, then we have to support the body in many different ways. So when we have low stomach acid, a lot of times we want to bring in a little bit more through betaine and HCl. Enzymes can help digestion. So supporting the body, not feeding the infections, and then you got to treat. And it's fine if you need to knock back the SIBO with the antimicrobial herbs to kind of get yourself out of the pain and agony of it, but then treat the cause of why it keeps coming back. Really look in and learn how to treat the parasites. And that's really the strength of our program, that it's just something that unfortunately is not well understood yet. So I'm going to go to any questions that you have. And before I do that, I just wanted to share some insights that have come in this past week. So every week, our wellness champions that are on the road to recovery, they are sharing. So we had our call last night, and they shared some of their successes. So these are just successes of people that are treating these horrible infections, recovering from all kinds of chronic disease. A lot of them are recovering from multiple sclerosis, but others also. So one student shared, so this student is, I should say, she has multiple sclerosis, and she is on her second treatment cycle. So we're literally using antiparasitic drugs to treat these parasites. And that is together with doing specific enemas with oxidizing agents plus herbs. And that's how we've seen hundreds of pictures of worms, like shocking. Anyhow, she has found that she's starting the second, or just starting the second treatment now, but she says, I don't have to take naps anymore. I'm sleeping 95% of the time through the night. My anxiety is almost gone, and I'm able to enjoy more throughout the day. I can lift my legs as I walk. Yesterday, which was Wednesday, she shared, I was able to walk through a local store without using my scooter. I pushed the shopping cart and I paced myself, and I was so happy to make it. I got everything on the list, made executive decisions, and I didn't forget anything. I'm thinking about my future, and I'm making goals with more confidence. I have more energy to exercise. Exercising is still at the beginning stages, but I am so encouraged. And then another student shared, I'm sticking with the plan like glue. My energy levels were so great yesterday. I was up early at 5:45, went shopping in the day, and stayed up till 10 p.m. So this is somebody who maybe a month ago just found me and started in the academy, being a wellness champion, and she's just following the eating plan and supporting the body. So she has not started to treat yet, and she's noticing improvements like this already. I haven't been able to do this for some time, and I'm on a mini high. I'm so happy to see this progress, and I haven't even started treating yet. Another student shared, so this is another student that's almost symptom-free. A lot of my students will send me pictures of the parasites, and so she's just starting to release them and sent me a bunch of pictures, and she's so super excited because it doesn't hurt passing them, but the exciting thing is when they come out, you feel so much better, and it helps us to understand why we felt so lousy to begin with. And then another student, I no longer have heartburn, indigestion, constipation. I'm sleeping better. The symptoms of burping and hiccuping and bloating and mucus in the back of my throat are so much better already. My runny nose, watering, itchy eyes, and itchy ears have improved greatly. Also, I am talking and moving better. I was diagnosed with ataxia. So this student did not have MS, and she's not treating it, but she's just in the prep phase, getting ready to treat. I am really encouraged and hopeful by this protocol. She's another one of the students that some of them have tried so many things in the past, and they've spent a ton of money, and they have never been able to move forward, and she's finally starting to move forward, and she hasn't even gotten to the real part of it where we're really treating and getting them out of the body. Another student, she's on her second cycle, and she said, I've just completed the second cycle. I feel great on this stuff. So much more energy. These parasites can make us feel incredibly tired. That's another symptom. I would rate my improvement, oh, this is another student, since supporting the body and following the eating plan, so he hasn't started treating yet, he would rate his improvement from a 3 to a 6.5 or 7, just with preparing. He said, now I'm ready to start treating. Another person shared, and so this is somebody with PLS, and again, shocking how many pictures of parasites. I'm sure she sent me at least, it was between 10 and 15 pictures in one email. She sent me 3 emails. And she was like, I'm getting so tired of laying them out. Like once they come out, our students very often will lay them out flat and put a little ruler or a measuring tape beside them so that you can see how big they are. And she's like, I've been passing them every day for, it was like weeks and weeks and weeks. She's like, I'm tired of it. So she just catches them in the colander and takes a picture of it. Really shocking. And can they actually impact our ileocecal valve and cause and move up into our small intestines? Absolutely. Some of the ones our students are passing are up to 2 feet long. So yeah, they're definitely fleshy worms, and they can definitely cause that kind of problems. So the pictures, we are creating case studies, we are creating research, and we are going to be sharing this in peer-reviewed journals, because this is something that is, I was just at a beautiful workshop last week, just got back 2 nights ago, and the wonderful integrative practitioners there, this is new to them too. Because if you can't see them, if you can't test for them, if you haven't been trained in how to recognize them, how do we know they're there? And that is the key, and it's time for things to change. Another student is on her 2nd treatment cycle, and she's noticed, again, more improvement with numbness, so less numbness. And also she shared, I can now skip and I can do a slight jog. And she actually went back to work. So she has multiple sclerosis, and she's actually back working again. And I think she can walk 2 miles now. She doesn't use her walker anymore. So my sleep is excellent, and my bowel movements are great also. The last couple I just wanted to share is another student, and I think she has started her, I don't know, I didn't put it down here if she started her treatment cycle or not, but she shared that her knee pain has decreased from, It was at a 3, and now it's at a 2. So I get the students to rate it out of 10. And her hypermobility of her knee was at, 6 weeks ago was at a 7, now it's at a 4. Difficulty sleeping, it was at a 5, now at a 4. She's able to feel more refreshed when she wakes up. Her brain fog 6 weeks ago was at a 4, it's now at a 1. Her mood was at a 4, it's now down to a 1. So improvement in her mood. Awesome. And then another student, the last one I wanted to share. So this is another student that is just following the eating plan, supporting the body, ready to start treating. She's just going to get the treatments ready here. And she shared, I'm doing really well with my walking and not experiencing any pain. The eating plan has made such a big difference in my body. I'm not having problems with my balance, and I am walking straight. This is just by not feeding the bacteria, the parasites, and the fungus as much. And I am working long days and not tired, so my body is feeling good. How exciting. So this is the road to recovery. And I just want to encourage you that if you have never met me before, watch some of my videos on YouTube, Live Disease Free, Facebook, Live Disease Free. There are a lot of things you can start to implement, that you can start to put into practice. I was just speaking with one gentleman today, and they started just making some changes in their eating plan. And he's feeling so much better already this first week. And he's not implementing the entire eating plan. This stuff works. And if you're at that place where you're like, Pam, thank you for all the free videos. I've done so much work on myself. I've worked with integrative practitioners. I've spent a lot of money doing a lot of things, CCSVI, stem cell, working with functional medicine. I need to treat the infections. I need to get on with my life. I want this next year to be my year. I want it to be a different year. If that's the case, reach out. Watch my masterclass training. The link will be in the description, like in the feed or in the top of my video. Watch it. It's a free masterclass. It talks about these infections. It talks about case studies of people that have recovered. And I also share the steps we need to do to recover. And if this all makes sense to you and you're like, I want to be a wellness champion, then make sure you can follow the link and you can fill out a form. And if you're ready, you can chat with me. You can get started right away. You can join us. We had 2 people join this week, and you can be a wellness champion too. I'm going to see if there's any questions. I am really excited about the link between parasites and SIBO, because it doesn't make sense why people can't totally get over it, why people have to manage it and get it down, but then it can keep flaring up. And now that we know so much about parasites, it makes perfect sense. Hello, Stephanie. Hi, Danielle Anderson. Yes, Danielle Anderson is another wellness champion that no longer needed a walker. And she went back to work also. Way to go. Yes, and Ronnie, hi. So that was a different student. I don't have her on the record yet. She will be. I'm going to be doing some more wellness champion successes. If you want to hear from the wellness champions, you can go onto my website, Live Disease Free, livediseasefree.com. And you will see that in the menu, there is drop downs. I can't remember where it is, but you can actually see the wellness champions, but you can also see their successes. You can click on any of them. Also YouTube, we're starting to post YouTube videos of the students sharing. And it's so inspirational. Listen to their words, their experience, how it's changed their life. So nice to see you, Danielle. Hi, Ronnie. Hi, Wendy. And hi, Christine and Jill, Jason. Oh yes, there are a few wellness champions on here that have passed a couple of worms for sure, and it's pretty exciting. Hello, Brian. Hi, Denise. Hi, Troy. Hi, Mitchella. Hi, Lisa. No questions. Have any of you guys suffered with SIBO in the past? It is quite common. Maybe you haven't been diagnosed, but maybe you were. Hi, Jill. Hi, Lori. Danielle, Denise. Okay, Tracy. How do you know if you have parasites? So the problem is that at this point in time, you can have a parasite test done with your medically trained doctor, but chances are it's going to come back, you don't have parasites. 9 out of 10 times. Sometimes they will pick up the smaller parasites that the big parasites carry. So things like Blastocystis hominis or some of the entamoeba. There's all kinds of small parasites that they carry. And it would Giardia, it would be more likely that those would test positive if you have enough of them. But as far as the large worms, they're not, unfortunately, they're going to get missed 90% of the time. And so what we do with our students is we have a list of symptoms of parasites. And then we also have a list of symptoms of the cerebral spinal nematoidiasis. So Dr. Alan McDonald found that in every specimen of a person that died of multiple sclerosis or died with multiple sclerosis, he found tons of small parasitic roundworms called nematodes, filarial worms, in the spinal fluid, in the central nervous system, the brain and spinal fluid of people that have died of MS. That is disgusting, and it also is so crazy because for 100 years, veterinarians have known that when animals have these worms in their central nervous system, they have all the symptoms of MS, of multiple sclerosis. It is shocking. I've done videos on this. And if you want to watch his lecture, which is so profound, share it with your neurologist, share it with your integrative practitioners, share it with everyone. You can find that link to that talk of Dr. Alan McDonald on my website, livediseasefree.com. And when you go there, you'll see in the main menu, it says research. And then there will be some links, and pick the parasite or infections, you'll find it. But look under parasites, I think it's right at the top, or just kind of scan the studies that I have there listed. And it's Dr. Alan McDonald, and you'll find it there. And he talks about nematodes and so this is a huge, profound find. So with our students, if we have a lot of symptoms of those nematodes in the central nervous system, and we have a lot of other symptoms of parasites, we start treating them. So this is where you have to work with somebody to treat them because you're using medications which need prescriptions. You have to use them safely. You can't just do this on your own, especially if you want to do it safely and effectively. Because if you don't do it effectively, they become resistant. These parasites easily become resistant to treatment, and then you don't have an answer in the future. You can't treat them. So you want to use it safely, wisely, and effectively so that you clear the parasites, but then you also could use it in the future. Remember, like how we treat our dogs, our cats, our horses, our cattle for parasites. They get parasites and we interact with them, but we don't get parasites. How ridiculous is that? So we know we're supposed to deworm our pets at least once a year, twice a year. Some recommend every quarterly. And so we have to, once we get well, once we've treated them well enough, Tracy, we have to then, as prevention, treat parasites at least once a year or twice a year. So unfortunately, right now, there's no tests. But the practitioners that we work with, what we can do is we can do energy testing to see which treatments are most helpful for the types of parasites that we have. So we can't identify the specific parasites, and I honestly believe it's going to be a long time before we do, because there's hundreds of species of fungi that can make us sick. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of types of bacteria that can get out of balance and cause symptoms. Then we're talking about parasites. There's so many types of worms, big ones, small ones. And so it's going to take time if we can get our standard of care moving in that direction. Right now, we're having the most success with working with practitioners where the samples are tested with energy testing to see which one balances them out, which one helps them to return basically this energy field that we all have around us, and it's biophysics. So it really supports us and it makes us stronger. And those treatments are the ones that we're using. And then we do have some general understanding of what very often is helpful for multiple sclerosis, especially for dealing with those little nematodes. So unfortunately, that's where we're at. But the exciting thing is that if you do the right things, if you treat those infections, you can recover not just from MS, but other chronic diseases also. There's this huge parasitic component that is just not being addressed. Hi, Bryce. Hi, Virginia. And hi, Jean. Hi, Kelly. So Tracy, you are so bloated, and every time you eat, you blow up. So you may have SIBO, and you can go to an integrative practitioner and they can do the breath test and they can look at other things, as I mentioned, your electrolytes and are you anemic and all those other things. But again, you're just going to have to treat it. So there is one person that I really admire, and her name is Dr. Seebecker, and I think it's info, SIBO info, her website is. But if you just type in Seebecker and SIBO, you'll find her website. And she has found, so I believe she's a medically trained doctor. She suffered with SIBO herself. Last videos I watched, she was managing it quite well. But again, I really don't think that she knows about the parasite part. And so you can see some of the different types of antimicrobial herbs that she recommends that can give you some symptom relief. But in order to really get well, you've got to not just treat the bacteria, but also fungus and the parasites for sure. Hello, Danielle and Nancy. I think that's it for the questions. All right, see if there's any last. So thanks for posting it. So again, if you're learning this for the first time and you're like, wow, Pam, this makes a lot of sense, but I don't know, watch some of my videos. YouTube, Facebook, Live Disease Free. I have a ton of videos. It is changing people's lives, but I can't talk about treatment because every person is different. And if you're looking for a step-by-step plan to treat the infections, to really get back your life, to get back to work, like Danielle shared, and this other student that is in the process of treatment, and just getting back to traveling, whatever it is that you want, being active, running marathons again, you got to treat the parasites, and you have to treat them well, and you have to work with someone who's had success in treating them. And that's what we do. So watch my masterclass training. And if this makes sense to you, you can reach out to me. You can get started right away, and I will help you get your life back and treat those infections. All right. I think that's it. So next week, I am going to leave that as a surprise because there's a couple of different topics that I really want to talk about, and it all depends on which one I pick. Is like with this technology, hopefully I can get it figured out. But yeah, I'd really like to share with you some updated worm pictures if you're up for it. Like and it really helps to understand what we're dealing with. So the types of parasites that we're seeing in chronic disease, and talking more about that. This is something that I really hope that you can get awareness and help us to spread the word, because it's ridiculous how infested people are and how much they're suffering. And this has to get out. So I'd like to share a little bit more on that next week. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go, and we will talk to you next week, same place, 5 p.m. Pacific, on Live Disease Free on Facebook. So until then, bye-bye for now.